Commander Krathel stood on the bridge of his warship and watched the stars through the massive viewing window. His yellow eyes gleamed with hunger. After 200 years of conquest, he knew exactly what easy prey looked like. And today, Universe had delivered him the easiest prey of all. 12 HFY warships surrounded a small convoy of refugee vessels. The convoy moved slowly through empty space, their engines weak and their shields barely visible on his scanners. These were the Melvari, a peaceful species of aquatic creatures whose homeworld had been destroyed by a dying star. Now they fled through the galaxy, searching for a new home. They had no weapons. They had no military. They had nothing but hope. Krathel smiled, revealing rows of sharp teeth. Hope was worthless in this galaxy. The HFY Empire had conquered 40 civilizations across 1,000 star systems. They were reptilian predators, standing 3 meters tall with scales as hard as armor and claws that could tear through metal. Every species they encountered had two choices: surrender and serve, or fight and die. Most chose surrender. The ones who fought became examples for others. Commander, his tactical officer, called out from across the bridge, "I have completed my scan of the convoy. 17 civilian vessels carrying approximately 12,000 Melvari refugees. No weapons detected. No military escort." "Excellent," Krathel said. "Prepare boarding parties. We will take the healthy ones for the labor camps and strip their ships for resources." "Commander, there is one unusual reading." Krathel turned his head slowly. "Explain." The tactical officer pointed at his screen. "There is an unknown vessel traveling alongside the convoy. It does not match any design in our database. It is not responding to our scans." Krathel walked across the bridge to look at the screen himself. He saw a dark shape moving near the refugee ships. It was smaller than his warships, and its design was strange and unfamiliar. The ship was completely silent, giving off almost no energy signature. "What species?" Krathel demanded. "Unknown, Commander. We have no records of this vessel type." Krathel stared at the mysterious ship for a long moment. It was probably just a civilian escort. Some foolish species trying to protect the refugees with a single ship. He had seen this before. Brave but stupid gestures from weak creatures who did not understand how the galaxy truly worked. "Ignore it," Krathel ordered. "If they interfere, we will destroy them along with the rest. Begin the attack approach." The 12 HFY warships began moving into attack formation. They spread out like predators circling wounded prey, cutting off every possible escape route. The refugee convoy had nowhere to run. The Melvari ships began sending out distress signals, but there was no one nearby to hear them. They were alone in the darkness of space, or so Krathel believed. As his fleet moved closer, something unexpected happened. A transmission came through on the main communication channel. A voice spoke in clear, galactic common, calm and steady. "HFY Fleet, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Republic ship Unconquered. The convoy you are approaching is under our protection. You are ordered to turn back immediately. This is your only warning." The bridge fell silent. Krathel's officers looked at each other with confusion. The Terran Republic. They had never heard of such a thing. And the voice belonged to a female, speaking with absolutely no fear in her tone. Krathel burst out laughing. The sound echoed across the bridge, and his officers nervously joined in.
"Ow."
"One ship," Krathel said between laughs. "One tiny ship thinks it can threaten 12 HFY warships. This is the greatest joke I have heard in 50 years." He walked to the communication console and pressed the transmission button. His voice dripped with contempt as he spoke. "Unknown vessel, I am Commander Krathel of the HFY Empire. We have conquered species far more powerful than whatever pathetic civilization you represent. You have 10 seconds to power down your engines and surrender. If you do not comply, we will destroy you first, and then we will take our time with the refugees. Perhaps we will make you watch before you die." He released the button and waited, expecting to hear begging or crying or the sound of surrender. Instead, the calm, female voice returned. "Commander, I must inform you that I have 3,000 innocent civilians behind me, including 600 children. I will not allow any harm to come to them. I strongly advise you to reconsider your position." Crathel's amusement faded slightly. There was something in that voice. Not fear, not desperation. Something else entirely? It sounded almost like pity. He shook off the strange feeling. This was ridiculous. 1 ship against 12? The mathematics were simple. "Tactical officer," he commanded. "Search our database for any information on this Terran Republic." The officer worked quickly at his console. After a few moments, he looked up with a confused expression. "Commander, I found very little. They appear to be a minor species from a distant spiral arm of the galaxy. Their homeworld is called Earth. Records indicate they are physically weak, short-lived, and technologically unremarkable. They are not considered a threat by any major power." "As I suspected," Crathel said with satisfaction. "Weak creatures playing at being heroes. This will be over quickly." He turned to face his bridge crew. "All ships, prepare for attack. We will destroy the unknown vessel first, as punishment for their arrogance. Then we will proceed with capturing the convoy. Today we remind the galaxy why the Vexari are feared." His officers moved to carry out his orders. Across all 12 ships, weapon systems powered up and targeting systems locked onto the small dark vessel near the refugee convoy. On the viewing screen, Crathel watched the unknown ship floating silently in space. It had not moved. It had not powered up any visible weapons. It simply waited, like a stone in the middle of a river. "Commander," his tactical officer said suddenly. His voice had changed. It was higher now, touched with something that might have been concern. "I am detecting unusual energy readings from the unknown vessel." "What kind of readings?" The tactical officer did not answer immediately. He stared at his screen, his clawed fingers frozen above the controls. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Commander, I think we made a mistake." Crathel turned to look at the viewing screen. The unknown vessel was changing. Lights were appearing across its hull, spreading like fire across dark metal. Systems were powering up, one after another, revealing the true shape of what they had been facing all along. The ship was not small. It had been hiding its true size, somehow masking itself to appear like a minor escort. Now, as its full form became visible, Crathel felt his blood turn cold. The vessel was massive. It stretched 3 kilometers from bow to stern, 5 times larger than any Vexari warship. Its hull was covered with weapons that glowed with terrible energy. Its engines burned with the light of captured stars, and on its side, written in letters that somehow translated themselves into Vexari script, was a name that would haunt Commander Crathel for the rest of his life. Terse, unconquered, for the first time in 200 years of conquest. Crathel understood what prey felt like when it looked into the eyes of a true predator. The bridge of the Vexari. Command ship had fallen completely silent. Every officer stared at the viewing screen, watching the massive human vessel reveal itself. Warning alarms began screaming from every console, filling the air with sounds of danger. Commander Crathel stood frozen in place. His mind struggled to accept what his eyes were showing him. The ship that he had dismissed as a tiny escort was now the largest warship he had ever seen. It hung in space like a sleeping giant that had finally opened its eyes. "This is impossible," he whispered. His tactical officer was frantically working his console, trying to make sense of the readings. "Commander, I do not understand these numbers. The vessel is generating more power than our entire fleet combined. Its shields are operating on principles I have never seen before. And its weapons... ... "What about its weapons?" Crathel demanded. The tactical officer looked up with genuine fear in his yellow eyes. "I cannot identify them, Commander. My scanners do not recognize the technology, but the energy signatures are... they are enormous." Crathel felt his crew watching him. They were waiting to see how their commander would respond. For 200 years, he had led them from victory to victory. He had never retreated. He had never shown fear. His reputation was built on absolute confidence and total dominance. He could not show weakness now. "It is just one ship," Crathel said loudly, forcing strength into his voice. "I do not care how big it is. We are 12 warships of the Vexari Empire. We have destroyed entire civilizations. We will not be frightened by some unknown species and their oversized vessel." He marched to the communication console and opened a channel to all his ships. "All commanders, listen carefully. The enemy vessel is large, but size means nothing without the skill to use it. These humans, whoever they are, have made a fatal error by revealing themselves. They should have run while they had the chance. Now they will learn what happens when someone challenges the Vexari. All ships prepare for full assault. We attack in 60 seconds. He closed the channel and turned back to the viewing screen. The human ship had not moved. It simply floated there, waiting. That bothered him more than he wanted to admit. Inside the TRS Unconquered, Captain Elena Vasquez sat in her command chair and watched the Vexari fleet on her display. She was a woman in her 50s with gray streaks in her dark hair and calm brown eyes that had seen many battles. Her uniform was simple and practical, without the decorations that most military commanders wore. "Captain," her first officer reported, "the Vexar are charging their weapons. They appear to be preparing for a full assault." Elena nodded slowly. "I gave them a chance. Some people just refused to listen." She pressed a button on her chair and opened a channel to the refugee convoy. A holographic image appeared before her, showing an elderly Melvari with blue-green scales and large, worried eyes. This was Elder Thiessen, the leader of the refugees. "Captain Vasquez," Elder Thiessen said, his voice trembling. "We are detecting massive energy readings from the Vexari fleet. They are going to attack. You must flee while you can. Save your crew. We are not worth your sacrifice." Lena smiled gently. "Elder Thiessen, I made a promise to protect your people. I do not break my promises." "But there are 12 of them," the elder protested. "We have seen the Vexari destroy entire battle fleets. Your ship is impressive, but surely even you cannot fight such numbers alone. Please, Captain. We have accepted our fate. You do not need to share it." Lena leaned forward in her chair. Her voice was soft, but filled with absolute certainty. "Elder, you've never seen what humans build when we have something worth protecting. Those 12 ships out there think they are predators. They think they are strong because they have spent centuries attacking those who cannot fight back, but they have never faced humanity. They do not know what we are capable of, and in a few minutes they are going to learn a lesson they will never forget." She ended the transmission and turned to her crew. "Battle stations. Activate all defensive systems. And remember our rules of engagement? We disable, not destroy. We are not murderers. We are protectors." "Yes, Captain," her crew responded in unison. The Unconquered came fully alive. Its shields strengthened to maximum power, creating an invisible barrier of energy around the massive hull. Its weapon systems locked onto every enemy vessel simultaneously. Its engines hummed with contained power, ready to move at a moment's notice. On the Vexari command ship, alarms suddenly increased in intensity. "Commander," the tactical officer shouted, "the human ship is targeting all of our vessels at once. I repeat, it has weapons lock on all 12 ships simultaneously." Krathel felt a cold sensation crawl up his spine. No ship should be able to do that. Even the most advanced targeting systems could only track a few enemies at once. Yet this human vessel was treating his entire fleet like a single target. "Enough waiting," Krathel growled. "All ships, open fire. Destroy them." The Vexari fleet unleashed everything they had. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles streaked across space toward the Unconquered. The barrage was massive, powerful enough to vaporize a small moon. The attacks hit the human ship's shields and simply vanished. There was no explosion, no damage, no effect at all. The energy was simply absorbed into the shields like water disappearing into sand. Krathel stared in disbelief. "That is impossible." "Fire again. Keep firing." His fleet continued their assault. Wave after wave of weapons fire slammed into the Unconquered. The shields glowed brightly with each impact, but showed no signs of weakening. Inside the human ship, the crew barely felt any vibration. It was like standing inside a mountain while someone threw pebbles at it, Captain Vasquez watched the attack with patient eyes. After a full minute of constant bombardment, she finally spoke. "Open a channel to the Vexary, Commander." When the connection opened, Krathel found himself looking at a middle-aged human female who did not appear frightened or angry. She looked almost sad. "Commander," Alina said calmly, "your weapons cannot harm us. I want you to understand that I take no pleasure in what comes next. I have children on these refugee ships. Families who have already lost everything. Innocent people who just want to find a safe place to live. I will protect them with my life. I am asking you one final time. Turn around and leave. If you do this, no one needs to die today." Krathel's pride burned hot in his chest. He had been humiliated in front of his entire fleet. This human female had made him look weak. He would rather die than retreat. "Vexari do not retreat," he snarled. "We do not surrender. We do not show mercy, and we do not accept it. Attack until the enemy is destroyed. Those are our laws." Lena closed her eyes for a brief moment. When she opened them again, there was steel in her gaze. "Then I am sorry for what your laws will cost you today." She ended the transmission and gave a single order. Began defensive operations. Disable their weapons and engines. Minimize casualties. The Unconquered moved. It should not have been possible for something so large to move so fast, but it did. In the blink of an eye, it crossed the distance to the nearest Vexari warship and fired a single precise beam of light. The Vexari ship shuddered as its engines exploded. Not the reactor. Just the engines. The ship was dead in space, but still intact. Life support was still functioning. The crew was still alive before anyone could react. The Unconquered had already moved to its next target. 3 ships disabled in 60 seconds. No deaths. Perfect precision. Commander Krathel finally understood the truth. The human ship was not trying to destroy them. It was trying to give them a chance to survive. And somehow, that terrified him more than anything else. 9 Vexary warships remained operational, and panic was spreading through their crews like wildfire. Commander Krathel watched 3 of his vessels drift helplessly in space. Their engines destroyed with surgical precision. Not a single crew member had died. That should have been good news, but somehow it made everything worse. The Vexari understood destruction. They understood death. They had built their entire empire on the simple truth that the strong took from the weak, but this was something different. This human ship had the power to kill them all, yet it was choosing not to. That choice confused and terrified them in ways they could not explain. "Commander, we must retreat," his second gained command, Officer Scythia urged. She was younger than Krathel, with darker scales and sharper intelligence in her eyes. "We cannot win this battle. Continuing the attack is suicide." "The Vexari do not retreat," Krathel repeated stubbornly. "Not ever. Not for any reason, and the Vexari will die here today," Scythia responded. "All of us. For nothing." Krathel spun around and grabbed her by the throat. His claws pressed against her scales but did not pierce them. His yellow eyes burned with rage and wounded pride. "You dare speak to me of death? I have killed more enemies than you have seen years. I have conquered worlds while you were still learning to walk. We are Vexari. We are the apex predators of this galaxy. We do not run from anyone." Scythia did not struggle against his grip. She simply looked at him with calm, clear eyes. "Commander, look at the viewing screen. Tell me what you see." Krathel released her and turned to look. The human ship had stopped moving. It floated between his fleet and the refugee convoy, a massive guardian standing watch over its charges. Its weapons were still powered, still locked onto every remaining Vexari vessel. But it was not attacking. It was waiting for them to make a choice. "It could have destroyed us all by now," Scythia said quietly. "Every single one of our ships. Every single one of our crew, but it did not. It disabled 3 ships without killing anyone. Why would an enemy do that?" Krathel had no answer. In his entire life, he had never shown mercy to a defeated enemy. The concept was foreign to him, a weakness that predators did not possess, Captain. Alina Vasquez watched the remaining Vexary ships from her command chair. Her tactical display showed every enemy vessel, every weapon system, every crew member. She could end this battle in seconds if she wanted to. But that was not why she was here, Captain, her weapons officer reported. The Vexari are not moving. They appear to be arguing among themselves. Good, Alina said. That means they are thinking. Give them time. Our first officer looked at her with curiosity. Captain, may I ask why we are not pressing our advantage? These are the same Vexari who have enslaved millions of innocent people. They were planning to capture those refugees and put them in labor camps. Do they really deserve our mercy? Alina was silent for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful. That is a fair question, Commander. The Vexari have committed terrible crimes. They have caused immeasurable suffering across the galaxy. Part of me, the angry part, wants to destroy them all and call it justice. But that is not who we are. That is not what humanity stands for. She turned to face her first officer directly. We are not executioners. We are protectors. There is a difference between stopping evil and becoming evil ourselves. Every person on those Vexari ships made bad choices, yes. But they are still living beings with the capacity to change. I believe in second chances. I believe that even the worst people can find redemption if someone shows them another way. And if they refuse that chance? Her first officer asked. Then we stop them from hurting anyone else, Alina said simply. But we do not kill when we do not have to. We do not become the monsters we are fighting against. Before anyone could respond, an alarm sounded on the communication console. Captain, we are receiving a transmission from one of the disabled Vexari ships. They say they have a hull breach and are losing atmosphere. They are requesting assistance. Lena stood up immediately. Send a rescue team. Transport any injured crew members to our medical bay. Her first officer looked shocked. Captain, they are enemy soldiers. They tried to kill us minutes ago. Now they are dying people who need help, Alina replied firmly. That is all that matters. Send the rescue team. On the disabled Vexari ship, the crew could not believe what was happening. Human transport beams activated, and suddenly teams of humans in medical uniforms appeared on their bridge. They moved quickly and efficiently, sealing the hull breach and tending to injured Vexari crew members. One young Vexari soldier, barely more than a teenager, had been badly hurt when a console exploded near him. A human medic knelt beside him and began treating his wounds. The soldier stared up at her with confusion and fear. Why are you helping me? He asked weakly. We are your enemies. The medic smiled gently as she worked. Right now, you are a hurt kid who needs medical attention. That is all I see. Word spread quickly through the remaining Vexari fleet. The humans were rescuing their wounded enemies. The humans were providing medical care to the very soldiers who had attacked them. This was so far outside Vexari understanding that many of them simply could not process it. Officer Scythia listened to the reports from the disabled ships with growing wonder. Something was happening inside her, something she had never felt before. It took her a long time to identify the emotion. Shame. For 200 years, the Vexari had taken everything they wanted from weaker species. They had enslaved and murdered without a second thought. They had told themselves that this was the natural order, that predators had every right to consume prey. But these humans, with all their overwhelming power, were showing them something different. They were showing them that strength did not have to mean cruelty. They were showing them that the powerful could choose to protect instead of destroy. Scythia made a decision. She walked to a private communication console and opened a secret channel to the human vessel. This is Officer Scythia of the Vexari command ship. I wish to speak with your captain privately. A moment later, Captain Vasquez's face appeared on the small screen. Officer Scythia! How can I help you? Scythia struggled to find the right words. I need to understand something. You have the power to destroy us all. We attacked you first. We threatened innocent refugees. By every law of warfare, you have the right to annihilate our fleet. Yet you show us mercy. Why? What do you gain from letting us live? Alina considered the question carefully before answering. Officer Scythia, I am going to tell you something that my grandmother told me when I was a little girl. She said that the true measure of strength is not how easily you can destroy. It is how much power you can hold and still choose not to use it. We protect the weak and show mercy to the defeated. That is what makes us human. Scythia felt tears forming in her eyes, an expression of emotion that Vexari were taught to despise. "We have been conquerors for so long," she whispered. "We do not know how to be anything else." "It is never too late to learn," Alina said softly. "I believe that." "Do you?" Before Scythia could answer, Commander Crathel's voice roared across the bridge. "All remaining ships, full attack. Destroy the human vessel. I will not accept this humiliation. Attack now." "That is an order." The 6 operational Vexari warships powered their weapons and surged forward. Alina closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with determination. "So be it. Disable them all. Keep casualties to 0 if possible." The Unconquered moved like lightning. In less than 2 minutes, every remaining Vexari ship was dead in space. Engines gone. Weapons offline. Crews alive but helpless. The battle was over, and Commander Crathel finally had no choice but to face the truth. 12 Vexari warships drifted silently in space. Their engines dead and their weapons cold. Not a single crew member had been killed. Every ship still had functioning life support, working communication systems, and enough emergency supplies to survive for weeks. The human vessel had defeated them completely without taking a single life. Commander Crathel sat in his command chair, staring at nothing. His bridge crew watched him nervously, waiting for orders that did not come. For the first time in his long career, the great conqueror had nothing to say. Officer Scythia stepped forward carefully. "Commander, we need to make a decision. The human ship has offered to send repair teams to restore our basic engine functions. They say they will allow us to return to Vexari space if we promise not to attack the refugee convoy." Crathel laughed bitterly. "They defeat us completely, and then offer to repair our ships. What kind of warriors are these humans? Do they think we are pets to be patted on the head and sent home?" "I think they believe we can be something more than conquerors," Scythia said quietly. Crathel's eyes snapped to her face. "You sound as if you admire them." "I am confused by them," Scythia admitted. "Everything I was taught says that the strong dominate the weak. That is the natural order. That is how the universe works. But these humans are stronger than us, and they do not dominate. They protect. They show mercy. They help their enemies. I do not understand it, but I cannot deny that something about it calls to me." "You speak of weakness," Crathel growled.
Ow!
"Commander, I speak of a different kind of strength, one that we have never considered." On the TR's Unconquered, Captain Alina Vasquez was coordinating the aftermath of the battle. Human repair teams were being sent to every disabled Vexari ship, carrying spare parts and medical supplies. The mood on her bridge was calm and professional, as if disabling 12 enemy warships without killing anyone was a routine operation. Her communication officer spoke up. "Captain Elder Thiessen is requesting to speak with you." Alina nodded, and the holographic image of the elderly Melvari appeared before her. Tears were flowing freely down his blue-green face. "Captain Vasquez," Elder Thiessen said, his voice breaking with emotion, "I do not have words to express what I am feeling. My people have been running for so long. We have watched other species turn away from us because they feared the Vexari. We accepted that we would either be captured or die alone in the darkness of space. And then you came." He paused to compose himself. "You risked your ship and your crew for strangers? You fought 12 warships to protect people you had never met. And even in victory, you showed mercy to your enemies. I have lived for many years, Captain, but I have never seen anything like this. Why? Why would you do this for us?" Alina smiled warmly at the old Melvari. "Elder Thiessen, that is a question with a long answer. May I tell you a story?" "Please," Thiessen said, wiping his eyes. "Many generations ago, humanity was a young species. We had just discovered how to travel between stars. We were excited and foolish, like children running into a dark forest without understanding the dangers. And like children, we stumbled into something terrible." Elena's expression grew distant as she continued.
It.
There was a species called the Krythox. They were predators, like the Vexari, and they saw us as easy prey. They attacked our first colony ships. They destroyed our earliest outposts. They would have wiped us out completely if not for the intervention of another species. Who saved you? Thiessen asked. They called themselves the Guardians. We never learned much about them because they disappeared soon after. But when we were helpless, when we were about to be destroyed, they appeared and drove back the Krythox. They gave us time to grow stronger, to develop better technology, to learn how to defend ourselves. Elena's voice grew thick with emotion.
Oh.
Before they left, the Guardians gave us a simple message. They said that someone had once saved them in the same way long ago, and they asked us to remember the debt we owed, not to them, but to the future. They asked us to become strong enough to protect others the way they had protected us, to pass on the gift of survival to those who needed it. She looked directly at Elder Thiessen. That is why we are here. That is why humanity built ships like the Unconquered. Not for conquest, not for glory, but because we made a promise to species we will never meet. We promised to become guardians ourselves, to protect the helpless, to show mercy to the defeated, to prove that power does not have to mean cruelty. Elder Thiessen was weeping openly now. In all my years, I have never heard of such a thing. A species that conquers nothing, that wants nothing, that only seeks to protect others. We are not perfect, Elena admitted. We have made many mistakes throughout our history. We have dark chapters that fill us with shame. But we keep trying to be better. We keep trying to live up to the promise we made. Every species we save, every convoy we protect, every enemy we show mercy to, brings us closer to becoming what the Guardians hoped we would be. The conversation was interrupted by a new transmission. Officer Scythia's face appeared on a secondary screen. Captain Vasquez, I am requesting a private audience. There is something I must say to you. Elena accepted the request, and soon she and Scythia were speaking face to face through the communication link. Officer Scythia, what can I do for you? Scythia took a deep breath. Her scales seemed duller than before, as if the weight of the day had drained some of her vitality. Captain, I have served the Vexari Empire for 80 years. I have participated in the conquest of 7 civilizations. I have watched millions of people suffer because of my actions and the actions of my people. I told myself that this was right, that this was natural, that the strong taking from the weak was the only way the universe could function. She paused, struggling with her words. Today you showed me that I was wrong. You had every right to destroy us. We attacked you. We threatened innocence. We refused your mercy. And yet you still did not kill us. You still sent medical teams to save our wounded. You still offered to repair our ships. Tears began falling from Scythia's eyes. I am tired, Captain. I am tired of being a predator. I am tired of the fear in my victims' eyes. I am tired of serving an empire built on the suffering of others. I want to be something different, something better. I want to learn to be like you. Elena felt her heart swell with compassion for this broken warrior who was finally seeing the truth. What are you asking, Officer Scythia? I am asking for asylum, Scythia said. I want to leave the Vexari Empire. I want to join the Terran Republic. I want to learn how to protect instead of destroy. Will you accept me? Elena did not hesitate. Yes, we will accept you. Everyone deserves a second chance, Officer Scythia. Everyone has the potential for redemption. If you truly want to change, then we will help you find a new path. Scythia closed her eyes and let out a breath she had been holding for 80 years. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. As the transmission ended, Elena turned to her first officer with a smile. Contact the Vexari command ship. Tell Commander Krathel that we are returning Officer Scythia to him. But first, inform him that we are sending repair teams to all his vessels. They will be able to return home within 6 hours. And what about Scythia, Captain? If you return her, they will execute her for treason. Elena shook her head. We are not returning her. We are offering to transport any Vexari crew member who wishes to defect. I have a feeling she will not be the only one. The first officer smiled slowly. You are not just trying to win a battle. You are trying to change their entire civilization. One mind at a time, Elena agreed. That is how real change happens. Not through destruction. Through example. Through hope. The news spread across the galaxy like a wave of fire. The Vexari Empire. The undefeatable conquerors who had enslaved 40 civilizations. Had been stopped by a single human ship. Not just stopped, but humiliated. 12 warships disabled without a single death. Medical care provided to enemy soldiers. Repair teams sent to help defeated vessels return home. And most shocking of all, 17 Vexari crew members had chosen to defect. They had abandoned their empire and requested asylum with the Terran Republic. Officer Scythia was the highest ranking among them, but she was not alone. There were young soldiers who could not stomach any more conquest. There were veterans who had grown tired of endless war. There were even a few who simply wanted to see if the humans were telling the truth about this different way of life, Commander. Krathel returned to Vexari space in disgrace. He had lost his entire fleet and nearly 24 crew members to defection. The Emperor stripped him of his rank and exiled him to a frozen mining colony at the edge of their territory. But his punishment was not what troubled the Emperor most. What troubled him was the idea. The Emperor was ancient. The oldest and most powerful of all, Vexari. He had ruled for 300 years through fear and absolute dominance. Every challenge to his authority had been crushed without mercy. Every rebellion had been drowned in blood. He had believed, truly believed, that this was the only way to maintain order. But now there was something new in the galaxy. A species that was stronger than the Vexari, yet did not use that strength to conquer. A civilization that showed mercy to its enemies and protected the helpless. An idea that was spreading among his own people, making them question everything they had been taught. The Emperor understood that he could not fight this with warships. He could not conquer an idea. He could not enslave a belief. For the first time in 300 years, felt something he thought he had forgotten long ago. Fear, meanwhile? The TRS Unconquered escorted the Melvari refugee convoy to their new home. It was a beautiful world called New Azure, with vast oceans and gentle continents covered in flowering plants. The Terran Republic had discovered it decades ago and kept it in reserve for exactly this purpose. A sanctuary for those who had lost everything. Elder Thiessen stood on the bridge of his ship as they entered orbit around New Azure. His eyes were wide with wonder as he looked at the blue and green world spinning slowly beneath them. "It is beautiful," he whispered. "It is more beautiful than I dared to dream." Captain Elena Vasquez stood beside him, smiling at his reaction. "Your people will be safe here. Elder, the Terran Republic has established a protective perimeter around this system. Any ship that enters without permission will be intercepted and turned away. You can rebuild your civilization in peace." Thiessen turned to face her. "Captain, I must ask you something. Earlier you told me about the Guardians who saved humanity. You said they asked you to pass on the gift. But this, all of this, is so much more than a simple gift. You have given us a planet. You have given us hope. You have shown us that there is still goodness in the universe. How can we ever repay such a debt?" Elena placed a gentle hand on the old Melvari's shoulder. "There is only one way, Elder. Grow strong. Rebuild your people. And when the time comes, when you encounter a species that is helpless and afraid, protect them. Pass on the gift. That is all we ask. That is all the Guardians ask of us." Thiessen nodded slowly, tears streaming down his face. "I understand. We will remember this. We will teach our children and our children's children. The Melvari will become protectors. We will honor the debt we owe to humanity by paying it forward to others." The landing began shortly after. Thousands of Melvari refugees descended to the surface of New Azure, stepping onto solid ground for the first time in months. Children ran through fields of flowers, laughing and playing without fear. Parents wept with relief as they realized they no longer had to run. Officer Scythia watched the landing from the observation. The Unconquered. She had been given temporary quarters on the human ship while her asylum request was processed. Standing alone by the window, she saw something she had never witnessed in her 80 years of life, joy. Not the fierce joy of conquest, or the dark satisfaction of dominance. Just simple, pure happiness. The happiness of people who had been saved. The happiness of children who could play without fear. The happiness of families who had found a home. Captain Vasquez approached and stood beside her. "What are you thinking, Scythia?" The Vexery woman was quiet for a long moment. "I am thinking about all the civilizations my people have destroyed. All the refugee convoys we captured and enslaved. All the children who never got to play in fields of flowers because we took that future away from them. The guilt is almost unbearable, Captain." Lena nodded understandingly. "Guilt is natural. It shows that you have a conscience. But guilt alone changes nothing. What matters is what you do next." "What can I possibly do?" Scythia asked. "How can one person make up for centuries of cruelty?" "You cannot change the past," Elena said gently, "but you can help shape the future. You can speak to other Vexari. You can show them that there is another way. You can prove that even a predator can choose to become a protector. Change happens one mind at a time, Scythia, and it has to start somewhere." Scythia considered these words carefully. Then, slowly, she straightened her spine and lifted her head. "Then I will start. I will dedicate the rest of my life to undoing the harm my people have caused. I will speak the truth about what I saw today. I will tell everyone who will listen that the humans showed us mercy when they could have shown us death. And I will prove that even a Vexery can learn to be something better." 1 year passed. Elder Thesan stood on a hill overlooking a beautiful valley on New Azure. Behind him, a thriving Melvari city spread across the landscape filled with homes and schools and parks, the crystal-clear waters that his people loved. So much flowed through channels and pools throughout the settlement. Children played in the shallows, their laughter echoing across the valley. He heard a low rumble and looked up at the sky. The TRS Unconquered was passing overhead on patrol, as it did every few days. The massive ship cast a brief shadow across the land. Before continuing on its endless circuit, a young Melvari boy ran up to him, pointing at the ship with excitement.
"Oh, wait, grandfather, look."
"It is the humans, the protectors." Thesan smiled and placed a hand on the boy's head. "Yes, little one. They are watching over us. They are making sure we are safe. Will they always be there?" the boy asked. Thesan thought about Captain Vasquez and her promise. He thought about the Guardians who had saved humanity so long ago. He thought about the chain of protection that stretched back through countless generations, would continue into the future as long as there were people willing to stand up for others. "Not forever," he said. "One day we will be strong enough to protect ourselves. And when that day comes, we will become the protectors. We will find others who are lost and afraid, and we will help them, just as the humans helped us." "Why?" the boy asked innocently. Thesan smiled as he remembered Elena's words. "Because that is how the gift is passed on. The strong protect the weak. The saved become the saviors. That is the way of the universe when it is working as it should." The Unconquered disappeared over the horizon, continuing its endless patrol. Silent, watchful, protective. In the galaxy, there were hunters, and there were prey. But humanity had become something else entirely. They had become guardians. Because of their example, others were learning to do the same. One mind at a time. One species at a time. One act of mercy at a time. The universe was slowly changing, and it would never be the same.